I never thought one evening could quietly rewrite the entire direction of my life. It started like any other invitation I didn't question too deeply. My boyfriend, Daniel, had scored VIP passes to a high-end fashion show in the city. He was excited in that way he always was when he felt like he was upgrading our lives: expensive lights, expensive people, expensive experiences. And I went along with it because that's what I did back then. I fit myself into his world like a soft shadow. I remember standing in front of the mirror that night, adjusting my dress while he waited impatiently by the door. "Come on, we're going to be late," he said, checking his watch. "I'm ready," I replied, even though I wasn't sure what ready meant anymore. The venue was nothing like I expected. Giant glowing lights wrapped around the entrance, cameras flashing like fireworks, and a red carpet that felt almost unreal under my heels. Everything smelled like luxury. Perfume, ambition, and something sharp I couldn't name yet. Daniel held my hand tightly as we walked in, like I was part of his image. Not a person beside him, but a statement. Inside, the world changed again. Music pulsed through the air, deep, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. The runway stretched out like a glowing path of possibility, surrounded by an audience that looked untouchable. Everyone there seemed like they belonged to something bigger than ordinary life. I should have been watching the celebrities. I should have been impressed by the designers. I should have been focused on Daniel whispering names I barely remembered. But I wasn't. Because then she appeared. A model stepped onto the runway, and for the first time that night, everything else disappeared. She didn't just walk, she commanded the space like it belonged to her. Her gaze was calm, almost distant, but somehow it felt like she saw everything. The lights didn't just fall on her. They followed her. And in that moment, something inside me shifted, quietly, dangerously, completely. I didn't know her name yet. But I already knew I would never forget her. I tried to ignore her at first. That was the logical thing to do. The safe thing. I told myself she was just another model, just part of the show, just someone who existed in a world far removed from mine. But the problem was, she didn't feel like just anything. She walked again in the next segment of the show, this time in a flowing black outfit that shimmered under the runway lights like liquid midnight. Every step she took felt intentional, like she was writing a silent language only she understood. And I was learning it without meaning to. "Isn't she something?" Daniel said beside me, leaning in slightly. There was admiration in his tone, but also something casual, like he was commenting on a car or a watch. "Yeah," I answered automatically. But my eyes didn't move away. The model turned at the end of the runway. And for a brief second, just a flicker, her gaze lifted. It landed somewhere in the crowd. Somewhere near me. I felt it before I understood it. A pause in my chest, like the world had skipped a beat. I blinked, unsure if I had imagined it. There were hundreds of people there. Thousands of lights. It was impossible that she was looking at me. And yet, something in her expression changed. Not a smile. Not obvious. Just a subtle softening, like she had noticed something out of place in a familiar painting. Then she was gone backstage. The crowd applauded. Daniel clapped too, impressed. But I just sat there, strangely still, my hands resting in my lap like I had forgotten how to move them. "You okay?" Daniel asked, glancing at me. "Yeah," I said again. But I wasn't. Because I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. That single, impossible second when it felt like the entire fashion show had narrowed down to just one line of sight between her and me. And I didn't even know her name yet. But something about me already felt different. The rest of the show passed in a blur, like my mind had decided to leave my body behind. Lights flashed. Music changed. Models came and went in perfectly choreographed sequences of beauty and movement, but none of it stayed with me. My attention kept drifting back to the same thought, the same moment, replaying itself over and over. That glance. Was it real? Or was I just imagining meaning where there was none? Daniel was fully absorbed now, leaning forward in his seat, commenting on outfits and designers like he was reviewing a world I couldn't access. I nodded at the right moments, smiled when expected, but inside I felt strangely detached, like I was watching my own life from a distance. Then the final walk began. The lights dimmed slightly, and the music softened into something more emotional, almost cinematic. One by one, the models returned for their final appearance, and the energy in the room shifted into anticipation. And then she came out again. This time, she wasn't just another part of the show. She was the center of it. She wore a silver outfit that caught every beam of light and fractured it into something almost unreal. It wasn't just the clothing, it was how she carried it. Like she didn't need permission to exist in that space. And then it happened again. She looked up. But this time, it wasn't brief. It was direct. Unhurried. Intentional. My breath caught in my throat before I even realized I was holding it. Around me, people were clapping, reacting, cheering, but it all faded into the background like static. Because in that moment, I wasn't in the audience anymore. It felt like I was on the runway too. Daniel said something, maybe a joke, maybe a comment about the show ending, but I didn't hear him properly. My attention was trapped in a line that connected me to her, invisible but unbreakable. And then, just as suddenly as it started, she turned away. Gone again. Back into the world behind the stage. But she didn't leave me behind. Because now, I couldn't unsee her. And worse. I didn't want to. After the show ended, everything became noise. People stood up, chairs scraped against the floor, conversations erupted all around us. Daniel stretched like the night had been a success, already talking about where we should go next. Maybe dinner, maybe meeting someone he knew backstage if we were lucky. I barely responded. My mind was still stuck inside that final look. We moved with the crowd toward the exit, the grand hall suddenly feeling smaller, tighter, like all that luxury was collapsing back into reality. Flashing cameras still went off near the red carpet, catching designers, influencers, and models as they disappeared into their separate worlds. And then I saw her. Not on the runway this time. Near the backstage entrance. She was standing just beyond the controlled chaos, partially hidden by staff and hanging fabric racks. Off the stage, she looked different, less like a symbol, more like a person. She had a bottle of water in her hand, her hair slightly undone, her expression quieter. But still, unmistakably her. My steps slowed without permission. "Let's go," Daniel said, gently tugging my arm. "We'll get stuck if we don't move." "Go ahead," I said before I could think. He frowned. "What?" "I'll catch up," I added quickly, forcing a small smile. It wasn't a lie I had planned. It just came out of me like instinct. He hesitated, then shrugged. "Don't take too long." And then he disappeared into the crowd. I stood there for a moment, completely unsure of what I was doing. This was ridiculous. I didn't know her. I didn't even know why I was drawn to her like this. She was just a model. A stranger. Someone I would probably never see again. And yet my feet moved anyway. One step. Then another. Closer to the edge of the backstage area. She shifted slightly, finally noticing movement near her. Her eyes lifted. And this time, there was no runway between us. No lights. No audience. Just silence. Her gaze met mine properly for the first time, and I felt something inside me go still in a way that was almost frightening. Because now it wasn't a moment from afar. Now it was real. I almost turned away. That was the sensible thing to do. The normal thing. The thing someone like me. Someone with a boyfriend waiting outside, someone who didn't belong in backstage corridors, was supposed to do. But I didn't. I stayed. Her eyes held mine, steady and unreadable at first, like she was trying to place me in a world she already understood too well. Up close, she looked even more unreal, but not in the distant, untouchable way I had felt on the runway. Now it was different. Now she felt human. "Hi," she said after a moment. Just that. One simple word. But it landed heavier than I expected. "Hi," I managed to reply, my voice quieter than I intended. There was a pause between us. Not awkward exactly. Just charged, like something unspoken was sitting in the air, waiting for permission to exist. "You were at the show," she said, tilting her head slightly. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said. We had seats near the front. "We?" "My boyfriend," I added automatically. The word felt strange in my mouth now. Like it didn't quite belong to me anymore. She nodded slowly, like she had registered that information but didn't attach much importance to it. Her attention stayed on me, not shifting away, not distracted by the noise behind her. "You watched carefully," she said. It wasn't judgmental. More like an observation. Something neutral, almost soft. "I guess I did," I replied. Another pause. This one longer. I suddenly became aware of everything, how close I was standing to her, the faint smell of fabric and makeup around her, the low hum of staff moving behind us, and my own heartbeat acting like it had forgotten how to stay calm. "I'm Lena," she said finally. Her name. It shouldn't have felt important. But it did. I hesitated for a second. "Aisha." Saying it felt like crossing a line I didn't know existed until that moment. Lena repeated it softly, like she was testing how it sounded in her voice. "Aisha." And something in me reacted to that, quiet, immediate, undeniable. Before I could stop myself, I asked, "Do you always look at the audience like that?" She gave a small, almost amused exhale. "Only when someone is actually looking back," she said. My breath caught slightly. Because I wasn't sure what scared me more. That she had noticed me. Or that I had been waiting to be noticed. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The backstage world kept moving around us, staff calling out names, hangers clinking, distant music still fading from the runway, but inside that small pocket of space, everything felt suspended. Like time had slowed just for us. Lena shifted slightly, adjusting the strap of the bag slung over her shoulder. Even that simple movement felt effortless, like she was always aware of how she existed in space. "You're not supposed to be back here, you know," she said, but there was no sharpness in her voice. It sounded more like curiosity than warning. I know, I admitted immediately. That honesty surprised even me. A faint smile appeared on her face, not fully formed, but enough to change the atmosphere between us. So why are you? I hesitated. That was the question I didn't have a rehearsed answer for. Because the truth was messy. Confusing. Dangerous in a way I couldn't fully explain. I saw you, I said finally. It came out simpler than I meant it to. Lena didn't respond right away. She just looked at me, studying me in a way that felt strangely gentle, like she wasn't trying to judge what I said, just understand it. That happens a lot, she said quietly. People see the model, not the person. I didn't know what to say to that. Because I had seen her on the runway first. But now, I wasn't so sure that was all I saw anymore. A staff member passed behind her, calling out something about wardrobe changes. She didn't move immediately. Instead, she stayed where she was, still facing me. You should go, she said after a moment. It sounded like advice. But her eyes didn't fully agree with her words. I should, I repeated softly. Neither of us moved. There was a strange tension in the air now, not uncomfortable, but heavy, like something unfinished pressing against the present. I swallowed, my voice quieter when I spoke again. Will you be here after everything ends? Lena looked at me for a long second. Then she nodded once. Yes. Just that. Simple. Certain. And somehow, that single word felt like a door quietly unlocking somewhere I didn't realize I had been standing in front of my whole life. I should have left. I kept telling myself that as I finally stepped away from the backstage entrance, slowly merging back into the moving crowd. People were laughing, talking, taking photos, completely unaware that something small but irreversible had just shifted inside me. Daniel was waiting near the exit, arms crossed, looking mildly annoyed. Where did you go? He asked immediately. Sorry, I said quickly, forcing normality into my voice. I got held up. With what? He pressed. My mind went blank for half a second. And then, instinctively, I lied. Just crowd stuff. It took time to get out. He studied me for a moment, like he was trying to decide whether to believe me. Then he sighed. Let's just go, he said. I'm hungry. We walked out into the night air, but everything felt different now. The city outside was loud and familiar, yet I moved through it like I didn't fully belong to it anymore. Daniel kept talking about the show, about the models, about how insane it all was, but his words felt distant, like they were coming from another room. And all I could think about was her. Lena. Her voice. Her eyes. The way she said my name like it meant something more than just a label. I hated how easily she stayed in my thoughts. Not because it felt wrong, but because it felt right in a way I wasn't prepared for. At one point, Daniel reached for my hand again. I let him. But I noticed something strange. It didn't feel the same. Not warm. Not grounding. Just familiar. Like something I had been holding on to out of habit rather than feeling. Did you like the show? He asked as we walked. I hesitated. The honest answer wasn't simple. I did, I said finally. It wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the truth either. Because what I liked wasn't the show. It was the moment after it. The moment I wasn't supposed to have. And no matter how much I tried to push it away while walking beside Daniel, Lena's voice kept echoing in my mind. I'll be here after everything ends. And I didn't realize it yet. But that sentence was already pulling me back. The next day felt ordinary on the surface. That was the strangest part of it. The same routine. The same light through my window. The same messages on my phone from Daniel, asking if I was free later, talking about dinner plans like nothing had shifted between us. But I wasn't the same person who had walked into that fashion show. I kept replaying Lena's words in my mind. I'll be here after everything ends. It shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. By evening, I told Daniel I wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a dramatic exit. No argument. No confession. Just a quiet distance growing between us that neither of us fully understood yet. He seemed frustrated, but eventually left it alone. And when he finally stopped texting, the silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt open. Like space for something I hadn't allowed myself to consider before. Hours passed. Then I found myself outside the venue again. I don't remember fully deciding to go. It was more like my body arrived before my thoughts caught up. The building looked different in daylight, less magical, more real. But I still recognized the entrance where everything had started. I hesitated at the door. For the first time, I let myself ask the question I had been avoiding. What am I doing? And then, softer, deeper. What do I actually want? The answer scared me more than anything else. Because it wasn't about Daniel. It hadn't been for a while. Inside, the backstage area was quieter now. Almost empty compared to the chaos of the night before. A few staff members moved around, packing things away, the energy of the show already fading into memory. And then I saw her. Lena. She was standing near a rack of clothes, no runway lights, no audience, just the soft glow of a hallway lamp. She looked up the moment I entered. And this time, she smiled. Not like a model. Not like a performance. But like she had been waiting. You came, she said softly. I stopped a few steps away from her. I didn't know if I would, I admitted. Most people wouldn't, she replied. That silence returned, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was honest. I took a small breath. My life feels different, I said. Since I met you. Lena didn't rush to respond. She just looked at me, really looked at me, like she understood exactly what I meant. I don't think it changed because of me, she said quietly. I think it changed because you finally saw something you were already feeling. My heart tightened at her words. Because she was right. And I knew it. I stepped closer, just slightly. I don't know what this is, I whispered. Lena's gaze softened. You don't have to know everything right now, she said. Just, don't ignore it. The world outside that moment didn't matter. Not Daniel. Not the show. Not the noise of expectations I had been living inside for so long. It was just her. And me. And the space between everything I used to be. And everything I was finally allowing myself to feel. I took another small step forward. And this time, I didn't stop myself. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't choosing what was easy. I was choosing what was real.